Dr. Alan Miller stood at the window of the medical bay, watching the blue-green planet of Viridia grow larger as the ship Horizon moved into orbit. His stomach twisted with a mix of excitement and worry. This was his first mission as chief medical officer, and making contact with the Viridian's aliens, known across the galaxy for their advanced medicine, was a big deal. "First day jitters, Doc?" Captain Olivia Wright walked up beside him. Her uniform was perfect, not a wrinkle in sight. "Just thinking about all the medical knowledge we might learn," Alan said. He ran a hand through his brown hair, which needed cut weeks ago. "Well, the Viridians are eager to meet us, especially our science team." The captain nodded toward a woman working at a nearby station. "Dr. Morgan has been sending them research questions for months." Natalie Morgan was bent over her tablet, her red hair falling around her face. As the ship's xenobiologist, she studied alien life forms. Alan had spoken with her a few times during the 3-month journey from Earth. She was brilliant but quiet, always focused on her work. "Landing team, report to Shuttle Bay in 30 minutes, came the announcement over the ship's speakers. Alan grabbed his medical kit and headed to his quarters to change. The mission briefing had been clear. This visit was about building trust between humans and Viridians. His job was to learn, not to show off Earth medicine. The shuttle ride down to the planet was smooth. Alan sat next to Natalie, who could barely stay in her seat. "I've studied their medical texts for years," she told him, her green eyes bright with excitement. "The way they use biological compounds to heal is amazing. They don't cut people open for surgery. They use special cells that fix the body from the inside." "Sounds like they're way ahead of us," Alan said. "In some ways, but human medicine has its strengths too. We're more creative when things go wrong." A shuttle landed on a platform near a cluster of curved buildings that seemed to grow from the ground. A group of Viridians waited for them. Alan had seen pictures, but the real aliens were more striking. They stood on 2 legs like humans, but had smooth, damp skin in shades of blue and green. Their large eyes had clear membranes that blinked sideways, and they had no hair. Their hands had 6 fingers, perfect for the detailed work of medicine. "Welcome to Viridia," said the tallest alien, speaking through a translator device. "I am Chief Healers Rix. We are honored to share knowledge with Earth humans." Captain Wright stepped forward and gave the greeting they had practiced. The Viridians made a gesture with their hands that meant peace. The first 2 days went well. The humans toured the Viridian healing centers and watched demonstrations of their medical technology. Alan was amazed by a device that could map every cell in a body in seconds. Natalie spent hours talking with Viridian scientists about biology. On the 3rd day, they visited a research lab where the Viridians studied diseases from other worlds. This was what Natalie had been waiting for. "Your containment systems are incredible," she said as they walked through the facility. "On Earth, we need special suits to handle dangerous samples." "Our barriers are energy-based," explained a Viridian scientist named Lore. "Nothing can pass through without proper clearance." Natalie moved from station to station, asking questions and taking notes. Alan watched her with a smile. Her passion for learning was something he admired. Then everything went wrong. Alan was looking at a display of Viridian medical tools when a loud boom shook the building. The lights flickered, and alarms began to sound. "Containment breach," shouted a Viridian worker. The aliens began rushing around, their movements fast and panicked. "What's happening?" Captain Wright demanded. "An explosion in Section 7, Zurich said, his voice tight with fear, "where your xenobiologist was studying samples." Alan's heart dropped. "Natalie." He ran toward the smoke billowing from the far end of the lab. 2 security officers tried to stop him, but he pushed past them. "I'm a doctor. Let me help." The scene in Section 7 was chaos. Part of the ceiling had collapsed. 3 Viridians lay on the floor, their blue skin pale. And there, under a fallen piece of equipment, was Natalie. Alan rushed to her side. She was unconscious, blood running from a cut on her forehead. But what worried him more was the broken sample container next to her. A strange mist was settling on her skin. "We need to get her to medical now," Alan shouted. The Viridians moved quickly. They placed Natalie on a floating stretcher and rushed her to their emergency treatment center. Alan stayed by her side, checking her vital signs. Her heartbeat was fast, her breathing shallow. In the treatment center, Viridian healers went to work. They scanned Natalie's body and looked at the results with growing concern. "What is it?" Alan asked. "What's wrong?" Zrix turned to him, the membranes around his eyes fluttering rapidly, a sign of distress. Alan had learned. The explosion released a pathogen from the samples. It has entered her bloodstream and is attacking her cells. "Then treat it," Alan said. "You have medicines for this, right?" The Viridians looked at each other. "We will try our methods," Zrix said. "But human biology is different from ours. We cannot promise success." For the next 12 hours, Alan watched as the Viridian healers used their advanced techniques on Natalie. They injected her with glowing substances and used energy fields to strengthen her body. But her condition got worse. Her skin turned gray, and her breathing became more labored. "A pathogen is changing her DNA," Lower explained, showing Alan the scans. "It is unlike anything we have seen before." After the 3rd treatment failed, the Viridian Medical Council called a meeting. Alan sat among the alien healers, exhausted and worried. "We have attempted all known protocols," Zrix announced. "The human body rejects our most advanced treatments. We estimate she has 7 days before complete organ failure." "So you're giving up?" Alan asked, anger rising in his chest. "We accept the reality," Zrix said. "We will prepare a comfortable space for her final days and help her pass with dignity." Alan stood up, his fists clenched. "No, I don't accept that. Dr. Miller," Captain Wright warned, "we need to respect their medical judgment." "Their judgment is based on Viridian medicine," Alan argued. "She's human. Our bodies evolved on Earth, with Earth diseases. There might be something in our primitive methods that could help her." The Viridians looked shocked. One of them spoke up. "You would use your basic techniques when our advanced methods have failed? That would only cause more suffering." "She's my patient now," Alan said firmly. "I want access to your medical archives and permission to try human treatments." The room fell silent. Finally, Zrix spoke. "This is against our customs. When our treatments fail, we focus on a peaceful ending, not further intervention." Captain Wright pulled Alan aside. "You're creating a diplomatic incident," she whispered. "These people have medical knowledge hundreds of years ahead of ours." "I don't care," Alan said. "Natalie deserves every chance. I'm not letting her die because of alien customs." As the diplomats tried to smooth things over, Alan made a decision that could end his career. With or without Viridian approval, he would find a way to save Natalie's life. After much argument, the Viridians gave Alan a small room next to Natalie's stasis chamber. They made it clear they thought he was wasting time. The room had basic equipment, not nearly enough for what Alan needed, but it was a start. "This is all we can provide," Zrix said. His large eyes blinked sideways, a sign of disapproval. "We still believe you should let her go peacefully." "Thank you for the space," Alan said, ignoring the comment. "I'll need blood samples and access to your medical database." Zrix nodded stiffly and left. Alan looked around the small lab and felt a wave of doubt. What was he doing? The Viridians were hundreds of years ahead of humans in medical science. If they couldn't save Natalie, how could he? Dr. Miller? A voice came from the doorway. It was Lisa Patel, the ship's junior communications officer. She was young, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. Captain Wright asked me to help you. I have basic medical training. Alan smiled with relief. Thanks, Lisa. I could use an extra pair of hands. Together, they set up the makeshift lab. Alan used the medical kit he had brought from the horizon, plus the few tools the Viridians had provided. It wasn't much, but it might be enough. How is she? Lisa asked as they worked. Alan's face grew serious. Not good. The pathogen is changing her DNA, cell by cell. The Viridians say she has maybe 7 days before her organs shut down. But, you think you can help her? I have to try, Alan said. He looked through the clear wall at Natalie floating in the stasis chamber. Her skin was pale, almost gray. Tubes and sensors connected her to Viridian medical devices. There's something about this pathogen that seems familiar. Alan spent hours studying the blood samples. The Viridian equipment was strange, but he figured out how to use it. What he saw worried him. The pathogen was unlike anything in human medical records, but the way Natalie's body responded to it was familiar. Lisa, look at this, he said, pointing to the screen. Her immune system is in overdrive. It's not the pathogen killing her, it's her own body's response to it. Lisa looked at the data. Like an allergic reaction? More extreme, but yes. On Earth, we've seen similar reactions with certain tropical diseases. The body fights so hard it damages itself. This gave Alan an idea. If the problem was Natalie's immune response, perhaps they could calm it down long enough to fight the pathogen. He tried a standard immunosuppressant from his medical kit, but it had little effect. We need something stronger, he muttered. The next morning, Captain Wright visited the lab. She looked tired and stressed. How's it going, Doctor? She asked. Slow, Alan admitted, but I have a theory. I just need more time. Wright sighed. Time is something we don't have. The diplomatic team is struggling. The Viridians see our efforts as disrespectful to their medical traditions. Earth. Command is worried we'll damage relations. So they want me to stop? Alan felt anger rising in his chest. They've given us 48 hours, Wright said. After that, I'm ordered to stand down and accept Viridian procedures. After she left, Alan worked even harder. He tried different combinations of medicines, but nothing seemed to work. The pathogen was too strong, too alien. Meanwhile, Lisa spent hours reading through Viridian medical texts. The aliens had reluctantly given them access to their database, though they insisted it would not help. Dr. Miller, Lisa called suddenly. I think I found something. She showed him a passage she had translated. It described a case from centuries ago involving another spacefaring species. The aliens had been infected with a similar pathogen during an exploration mission. They didn't survive, Lisa said, but the notes mention a compound that slowed the progression. It wasn't much, but it was something. The compound was made from a plant that grew on Viridia. Alan asked Zrix for samples, explaining his theory. The chief healer was skeptical but curious. Your approach is unusual, he said, but I will provide what you need. With the Viridian plant extract, Alan created a new treatment. He combined it with human immunosuppressants in a way the Viridians had never considered. It was risky, but Natalie was running out of time. This has to work, Alan said as he prepared to inject the mixture into Natalie's foreline. Lisa put a hand on his arm. Are you sure about this? If it goes wrong, If we do nothing, she dies, Alan said simply. He administered the treatment. For several hours, nothing seemed to happen. Natalie's vital signs remained weak but stable. Alan stayed by her side, checking the monitors constantly. Then, just as he was about to give up hope, one of the monitors beeped. The pathogen's replication rate had slowed slightly. "It's working," Alan whispered. "Not much, but it's working." He adjusted the formula and gave Natalie a second dose. This time, her body responded better. The pathogen slowed down more, giving her cells time to recover. For the next day, Alan barely slept. He monitored Natalie's condition and refined the treatment. The Viridians watched with growing interest. Even Zrix began to ask questions about Alan's methods. "Your approach is unlike ours," the alien healer said. "We focus on precision, on targeting specific problems with specific solutions. You use broader methods." "Human medicine evolved differently," Alan explained. "We often have to treat symptoms while the body heals itself. Sometimes a simple solution works when a complex one fails." By the end of the 48 hours, Natalie's condition had improved slightly. The pathogen was still present, but it was no longer spreading as quickly. It was enough for Captain Wright to argue for more time. "The Viridians are impressed with your progress," she told Alan. "They've agreed to extend our deadline." Alan was relieved, but knew they were far from a cure. The treatment was only slowing the disease, not stopping it. Natalie was still in danger. That night, as Alan dozed in a chair beside Natalie's stasis chamber, he was awakened by a soft voice. "Dr. Miller." It was Rix. The Viridian healer stood in the doorway, his blue skin glowing faintly in the dim light. "I have been studying your methods," Zrix said. "They contradict our medical philosophy. We believe in precision and control. You embrace uncertainty and let the body participate in its own healing." Alan nodded tiredly. "Different approaches for different species. Perhaps." Zrix moved closer to the stasis chamber, looking at Natalie with his large eyes. "The pathogen's replication has slowed beyond our model's predictions. This ... interests me." Alan sat up straighter. "Was the Viridian offering help?" "I would like to observe your next treatment," Zrix said, "and perhaps suggest some modifications based on our knowledge of similar compounds." For the first time in days, Alan felt real hope. Working together, they might find a cure, but they were racing against time. Natalie's body was weakening, and the pathogen was adapting to the treatment. As dawn broke over the alien world, Alan and Zrix bent over their work, human and alien united by a common purpose, to save one human life that both their medical systems had failed. 5 days had passed since the explosion. Alan looked at his reflection in the lab window and barely recognized himself. His face was pale and thin, with dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't slept more than a few hours at a time since Natalie got sick. The treatment he and Zrix had developed was working, but too slowly. The pathogen had stopped spreading, but it hadn't died. Natalie's body was still fighting hard, using up energy she couldn't spare. "Her vital signs are getting weaker," Lisa said, checking the monitors. "The treatment is helping, but not enough." Alan rubbed his tired eyes. "We're missing something." Zrix entered the lab, carrying new equipment. The Viridian healer had become more helpful as he saw Alan's methods working. He still thought Viridian medicine was superior, but he was willing to try new approaches. "I brought a cellular analyzer," Zrix said. "It will show us more detail about how the pathogen behaves." As they set up the machine, Captain Wright arrived. Her face was serious. "The Viridian Medical Council is getting impatient," she said. "They say we've had enough time. They want to transfer Natalie to their end-of-life care today." "That's not happening," Alan said firmly. "We're making progress." "The diplomatic situation is bad," Wright explained. "We're being accused of disrespecting their most sacred medical traditions. Earth Command is concerned about the entire alliance." Alan was about to argue when Zrix spoke up. "I will speak to the council. Ask for one more day." After Zrix left, Alan and Lisa went back to work. They used the new analyzer to study the pathogen at a deeper level than before. "This is strange," Alan said, looking at the results. "The pathogen has elements that seem ... familiar." Lisa looked over his shoulder. "What do you mean?" "Some of its structure resembles Earth viruses." "But that's impossible. How would an alien pathogen have Earth-like components?" When Zrix returned, Alan showed him the findings. The Viridian's eyes widened, the membranes flickering rapidly. "This is most concerning," Zrix said. "These structures should not exist in a Viridian pathogen." Together, they ran more tests. What they discovered shocked them all. The pathogen wasn't entirely alien. It contained elements similar to viruses from several different worlds. "This could not have originated naturally on Viridia," Zrix said, his voice trembling slightly. "This appears to be engineered." The word hung in the air. Engineered. Someone had created this pathogen, combining elements from different species to make it more dangerous. "But why?" Lisa asked. "Why would anyone make something like this?" Before they could discuss it further, one of Natalie's monitors began to beep loudly. Her heart rate was dropping fast. "She's crashing." Alan rushed to the stasis chamber. "We need to stabilize her now." Zrix called for emergency help. More Viridian healers rushed in with equipment. They worked together, human and alien, trying to save Natalie's life. When she was stable again, Alan slumped in a chair, exhausted. "We're running out of time." Zrix sat beside him. "Perhaps there is another approach. If the pathogen is engineered from multiple species, perhaps it has multiple weaknesses." This gave Alan an idea. What if we attack it from different angles at once? Human medicine and Viridian techniques together? They went back to the lab. With renewed energy, Alan pulled up everything he knew about treating resistant infections in humans. Zrix brought in more advanced Viridian technology. "There's something here," Alan said suddenly, looking at data from both their research. "The pathogen can withstand our medicines and your energy fields. But what about radiation?" "Radiation?" Zrix seemed confused. "On Earth, we sometimes use targeted radiation to kill cancer cells," Alan explained. "If we combine that with your bio-compounds, maybe we can hit the pathogen with something it's not designed to resist." Zrix thought for a moment. "We have similar techniques, but we would never use them on a living patient. The risk is too great." "Greater than certain death?" Alan asked. They worked through the night, designing a treatment that combined radiotherapy techniques from Earth with Viridian biotechnology. It was risky and had never been tried before. "If this works," Zrix said, "it will change how both our peoples think about medicine." By morning, they were ready. The Viridian Medical Council had grudgingly given them permission to try this last treatment, though they made it clear they expected failure. Alan looked at Natalie floating in the stasis chamber. Her face was so pale, it was almost transparent. The monitor showed her body was shutting down, organ by organ. "This has to work," he whispered. Zrix placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture he had learned from watching the humans. "You have shown great dedication to your friend. Whatever happens, know that you have changed how I see human medicine." They began the treatment. First, the Viridian healers injected Natalie with special compounds that would target the pathogen. Then, using equipment from the Horizon Alan, directed low doses of radiation at specific parts of her body where the pathogen was most concentrated. For 12 hours, they continued the treatment in cycles. Natalie's vital signs fluctuated wildly. Several times, they had to stop and stabilize her before continuing. "Her body is fighting," Zrix observed. "That is good." By evening, they had done all they could. Now they had to wait and see if the treatment worked or if they had simply put Natalie through more suffering before the end. Alan refused to leave her side. He sat by the stasis chamber, watching the monitors and praying to whatever might be listening. Lisa brought him food, but he barely touched it. "You need to rest," she told him. "You've done everything possible." "Not everything," Alan said. "Not until she's better." As night fell over the alien world, the lab grew quiet. Most of the Viridian healers had left, convinced that morning would bring news of Natalie's death. Only Zrix remained, running tests and checking results. Just before midnight, one of the monitors changed its tone. Alan jumped up, afraid it meant Natalie was crashing again. But Zrix was already there, looking at the readings with amazement. "The pathogen," the alien healer said. "It's breaking down." Alan rushed to see for himself. The screens showed the pathogen's structure collapsing in on itself. The treatment was working. "It's dying," Alan said, hardly daring to believe it. Over the next few hours, they watched as Natalie's body began to clear the dead pathogen. Her vital signs grew stronger. Color returned to her skin. By dawn, the change was remarkable. The pathogen was nearly gone, and Natalie's body was beginning to heal. "She's going to make it," Alan said, tears in his eyes. "She's really going." "To make it?" Zrix's large eyes blinked rapidly. "You were right to not give up. I have learned something important from you, Dr. Miller. Sometimes the impossible simply takes longer." As the first light of the alien sun filled the lab, Natalie opened her eyes. Natalie's eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first. She looked around the room, confusion clear on her face. "Where am I?" Her voice was weak, barely above a whisper. Alan moved quickly to her side. "You're in the Viridian Medical Center." "There was an accident in the lab. You've been very sick." Natalie tried to sit up, but was too weak. "How long?" "Almost a week," Alan said. He checked her vital signs, amazed at how quickly she was improving. "How do you feel?" "Like I was hit by a shuttle," Natalie said with a weak smile. "But alive, very much alive." Zrix approached cautiously. Natalie's eyes widened at the sight of the alien. "This is Zrix," Alan explained. "He helped save your life." The Viridian healer made a gentle gesture with his six-fingered hand. "Your recovery is remarkable. You are very strong for a human." "I had good doctors," Natalie said. News of Natalie's recovery spread quickly. The Viridian Medical Council came to see for themselves. They were shocked that the treatment had worked. Some were pleased, others seemed uncomfortable with being proven wrong. Captain Wright arrived with a team from the horizon. She looked relieved, but also troubled. "It's good to see you awake, Dr. Morgan," she said to Natalie. Then she turned to Alan. "We need to talk, in private." They stepped into the hallway. Wright's face was serious. "The situation has gotten complicated," she said. "News about the engineered pathogen has leaked to both governments. People are panicking." "How bad is it?" Alan asked. "Bad. Some Viridians are saying Earth created the pathogen as a weapon. Earth extremists are claiming the Viridians used Natalie as a test subject. Both sides are demanding investigations." Alan shook his head. "That's ridiculous. Why would either side do this during a peace mission?" "Fear doesn't need logic," Wright said. 3 more ships from Earth will arrive tomorrow. The Viridians have activated their defense systems. Alan felt a chill run down his spine. What had started as a medical emergency was turning into a potential conflict between worlds. "We need to find out who really created this pathogen," he said, "before things get worse." Back in the lab, Zrix was studying the data they had collected during Natalie's treatment. "This pathogen was designed with great skill," the Viridian said. "It attacks multiple species in different ways." "Can you tell where it came from?" Alan asked. Zrix hesitated. "Not precisely, but it contains elements that are not from Earth or Viridia. Someone else made this." Over the next few days, Natalie grew stronger. She was able to sit up, and talk for longer periods. When she was strong enough, Alan asked her about the explosion. "I remember being in the lab," Natalie said slowly. "I was looking at some samples when I noticed something strange." "What kind of strange?" Alan asked. The samples were labeled as standard Viridian biology, but they didn't match the data I had studied. There were subtle differences, markers that shouldn't have been there. Alan and Zrix exchanged looks. This was important. "Did you tell anyone?" Zrix asked. Natalie shook her head. "I thought it was a mistake in labeling. I was going to ask about it, but then the explosion happened." With this new information, Zrix requested access to the security recordings from the lab. At first, the Viridian security team refused, but Captain Wright convinced them it was necessary for the investigation. The recordings showed the lab before the explosion. Natalie could be seen working at a station, examining samples. Then, in the background, a figure moved near the wall where the explosion later occurred. "Can you enhance that image?" Alan asked. The Viridian security officer adjusted the recording. The figure became clearer. It wasn't human or Viridian. It had features of both species, but was neither. "What is that?" Alan asked, shocked. Zrix's eyes blinked rapidly. "A hybrid. Some groups in the galaxy experiment with combining species. It is forbidden." The recording showed the hybrid placing something on the wall, then quickly leaving the lab. Minutes later, the explosion occurred. "It was deliberate," Alan said. "The explosion, the pathogen release. Someone wanted this to happen." Captain Wright took the evidence to both the Earth and Viridian governments. The immediate tension eased as both sides realized they had been manipulated by a third party. "There are groups that benefit from keeping younger species divided," Zrix explained to Alan as they watched Natalie sleep. "United, we become competition." Alan nodded. "So they tried to make us distrust each other, and nearly succeeded." Zrix added, "With the truth now clear, both governments formed a joint team to investigate who was behind the attack. The horizon would remain at Viridia longer than planned." For Alan, the political situation was less important than Natalie's. Recovery. Though the pathogen was gone, it had damaged her body. She would need time and therapy to fully heal. "Will I be able to return to duty?" Natalie asked him during one of her stronger moments. "Eventually," Alan said, "but it will take time. The pathogen changed some of your cellular structure. We need to monitor you to make sure there are no long-term effects." Natalie was quiet for a moment. "You saved my life," she said finally. "The Viridians told me they had given up. They were preparing for my death. I couldn't accept that," Alan said simply. "Why? You barely knew me." Alan thought about it. "Because that's what humans do. We don't give up, even when logic says we should. Especially then." One evening, as Alan was checking Natalie's latest test results, Zrix came to the lab with a formal-looking document. "The Medical Council has made a decision," the Viridian said. "They wish to create a new research initiative. Humans and Viridians working together to study medicine." "That's wonderful," Alan said. "They want you to lead it," Zrix continued. "With me as your Viridian partner?" Alan was stunned. "Me? But I broke all your medical protocols." "Yes," Zrix said, with what might have been a smile on his alien face. "And in doing so, you showed us that our way is not the only way. That is a lesson worth learning." As Alan considered the offer, he looked through the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was the group responsible for the attack. They had tried to drive humans and Viridians apart. Instead, they had created a bond that might last for generations. "I'll do it," Alan said, "on one condition. Natalie gets the best. Care from both our medical traditions until she's fully recovered." "Agreed," Zrix said. "She has earned a place in Viridian history, the human who survived the impossible disease." Alan smiled and showed two worlds that together were stronger than apart. 6 months had passed since the explosion in the Viridian lab. The blue-green planet now looked familiar to Alan as he stood at the window of his new office. The Interspecies Medical Center had been built quickly, a sign of how important both governments considered the project. "Dr. Miller, the Viridian delegation has arrived," said Lisa, who had stayed on as his assistant. She had proven so valuable during Natalie's treatment that Alan had requested she be assigned to the new research team permanently. "Thank you," Alan said. "Show them in." Zrix entered with 4 other Viridians. They no longer seemed strange to Alan. After months of working together, he had grown used to their blue skin and large eyes. "The Medical Council has approved all our research proposals," Zrix announced. "We can begin testing the combined therapies next week." "That's great news," Alan said. The project was moving faster than he had expected. The near disaster with Natalie had frightened both species, making them eager to share medical knowledge. "How is Dr. Morgan today?" asked one of the younger Viridians. Natalie had become something of a celebrity on Viridia, the human who survived the impossible disease. "She's doing well," Alan said. "She's planning to leave soon." This news surprised the Viridians. Natalie had spent the past 6 months recovering at the medical center. The pathogen had damaged her body in ways that took time to heal. Both human and Viridian doctors had worked together on her treatment, learning from each other in the process. After the meeting, Alan walked to Natalie's room. She was packing her things, moving with the easy grace that had returned to her only recently. "So you're really going?" Alan said from the doorway. Natalie looked up and smiled. She had gained back the weight she had lost during her illness. Her red hair was longer now, and her green eyes were clear and bright. "The Horizon leaves tomorrow," she said. "Captain Wright offered me my old position back." "You could stay," Alan suggested. "We're doing important work here. Your experience would be valuable." Natalie shook her head. "I need to get back out there. What happened to me, it wasn't an isolated incident." Alan entered the room and sat on the edge of the bed. "What do you mean?" "The investigation team found evidence that the group behind the attack has done this before. They collect biological samples from different worlds, study weaknesses, create weapons. Other ships have had accidents similar to ours." Alan frowned. This was news to him. "Why didn't Wright tell me?" "It's been classified," Natalie explained. "But she told me because ... double quotes." She hesitated. "Because what?" "Because she's giving me a new assignment. I'm going to command a small research vessel. We're going to investigate these incidents, try to find who's behind them." Alan was surprised. "A command? That's a big step up from xenobiologist." "I have unique qualifications now," Natalie said with a small smile. "I'm the only human who's survived their bioweapon. My blood contains antibodies that might help develop protections for others." Alan understood then why she had to go. This wasn't just about her career or her recovery. It was about protecting others from what she had experienced. "When do you leave?" he asked. "The day after tomorrow. The new ship is called the Discovery. It's small but fast, perfect for the mission." That evening, the Viridians held a ceremony to mark the official opening of the Interspecies Medical Center. The large hall was filled with representatives from both worlds. Captain Wright was there with her senior officers. Even some members of the Viridian Medical Council attended, though they still seemed uncomfortable with the idea of humans teaching them about medicine. Zrix gave a speech that was translated for the humans. 6 months ago, we faced a crisis that could have divided our peoples. Instead, it has brought us together. We were arrogant. We assumed our evolutionary path gave us superior understanding of all biological processes. Dr. Miller proved that diversity of approach can succeed where uniformity fails. Alan felt uncomfortable with the praise, but knew it was important for the project. When it was his turn to speak, he kept it simple. Medicine isn't about who has the most advanced technology or the most complex treatments, he said. It's about never giving up on a patient, no matter how hopeless it seems. That's something both our species can agree on. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Alan found Natalie speaking with Captain Wright and some Viridian scientists. 3 Viridians have volunteered to join your crew, Wright was telling her. They'll be valuable for the research. It's unprecedented, one of the Viridians added. Our people have never served on a human vessel before. First time for everything, Natalie said with a smile. Later, Alan and Natalie walked in the gardens. Outside the medical center, the alien plants glowed softly in the dark, lighting their path. I never thanked you properly, Natalie said, for saving my life. You don't need to thank me, Alan replied. I was just doing my job. No, you weren't. Your job would have been to accept the Viridian diagnosis and let me go. You risked your career, maybe even the entire alliance, because you refused to give up. Alan was quiet for a moment. I couldn't let you die when I thought there was even a small chance of saving you. That's the difference between Viridian medicine and ours. They seek perfection. We accept messy solutions if they work. Well, I'm glad you're stubborn, Natalie said, taking his hand. And I'm sorry I'm leaving just as your big project is starting. We'll keep in touch, Alan said. The Discovery will have the best communication systems. And you'll need to send regular medical reports anyway. The next morning, Alan watched from the landing pad as the Horizon prepared to depart. The large ship would take Natalie back to Earth, where she would meet her new command. Captain Wright shook his hand firmly. You've done good work here, Dr. Miller. Earth Command is impressed. Just make sure Natalie gets the best crew for her mission, Alan said. What she's doing is important. She already has the best, Wright assured him. Her experience made quite an impression on both our governments. After saying goodbye to the rest of the crew, Alan finally turned to Natalie. They had already said their private farewells, but this was the official one. Safe travels, Dr. Morgan, he said formally. Remember to send those medical reports. I will, Dr. Miller, she replied with equal formality, though her eyes sparkled. Take good care of our Viridian friends. As the Horizon broke orbit, Alan stood with Zrix, watching from the observation deck. The Viridian placed a hand on his shoulder in the human gesture he had learned. She will do important work, Zrix said. As will we? Alan nodded. Different paths, same goal. The crisis had nearly cost Natalie her life, and almost sparked an interstellar incident. Yet from that near tragedy emerged something remarkable. 2 species learning that their differences could be their greatest strength. The pathogen designed to divide them had instead forged an unbreakable bond. And somewhere in the vastness of space, a human doctor and an alien healer had proven that life in all its stubborn diversity would find a way to survive. Sometimes, Alan reflected as the ship vanished into the distance, refusing to accept the inevitable is exactly what the universe needs.